Thank you. With that, I'm going to introduce Jay Polk, who is running as an independent candidate in District 8.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here too. Like Linda was saying, it's very important to get to know who you're going to be voting for and kind of hear what we have to say. So, again, my name is Jay Polk. I'm an independent candidate for County Commission, District 8 CB. Just a little bit about me. I was born in Jackson, Tennessee in 1975. In 1996, I met my wife, who is from Townsend. We lived in Middle Tennessee for a few years, and like so many people that leave this area, my wife wanted to move back to the mountains. So I've lived in Townsend since 2001, and it's a beautiful place. I love the people. The mountains are just great. I hike as much as I can, not as much as I'd like to. Unfortunately, I've got that pesky work thing that keeps taking up all my time. But I've talked to several people in the district, and I've heard about some issues that are important to them, and so I kind of like to talk about a few of the top issues, I guess, that I've heard about. So, and of course, at the end, feel free to interrupt me if you have any questions. Please don't hesitate. But of course, at the end, ask me anything you'd like. The first issue that I'd like to talk about is the enormous debt that our county commission has placed on us. Our county is almost $250 million in debt. The general fund spending, which is all the spending that, except for schools or roads, has increased at a rate of 2.5 times the rate of inflation over the past 5 years. However, instead of reducing their budgets, many of these departments have actually increased their budgets. The Sheriff's Department, I believe this past Thursday, they were voted $850,000 increase. Over the past 4 years, the wages of citizens has only gone up about 7%. But in that same time period, and Jim's going to get to more detail on this, but over that same time period, some departments, such as the Election Commission and the Register of Deeds, have increased their budget over 40%. And really, the Register of Deeds has increased their budget, even though deeds have decreased, because fewer people are buying homes, and it's kind of a tough housing market. So, I just think that's kind of unacceptable. I don't think that's not the way government should work. We should not operate in so much debt. I understand, all of us have some debt. You buy a house, you buy a car. I can understand a little bit, but it's just way out of control. And like Linda was saying, just at the last commission meeting, they almost voted to raise our property taxes in addition to the increased appraisals they were getting. So not only were they going to be getting more revenues from the increased appraisals, they're also going to, on top of that, increase our property taxes, which does not make a lot of sense to me. The unfortunate thing is, one of the commissioners after the meeting was quoted as saying, "I think we got hard times coming. We can't avoid a tax increase forever." And that to me just kind of seems like the commissioners don't really have any intention in reducing their budgets. They're just talking about tax increases and tax increases and tax increases, and there's no fiscal responsibility. It seems like on the commission. So one of the things that I like to do about that, if I'm elected, is I actually want to go through just like we do at home, at our own homes, go through the budget line by line and figure out where the waste is. Let's figure out which departments we can reduce and by how much. And let's start spending our money responsibly. Let's start being accountable for how our money is spent in the county. After all, it's your money. It's our money. It's the taxpayers' money. The money doesn't belong to the commissioners. So they should be as responsible and accountable as possible. And one idea that I've read some about is several counties or municipalities have actually decreased, or they've reduced their costs by contracting with private companies. So these are some ideas that we should at least look at to see what ways we can save our county some money. The second issue is it's a pretty hot topic, I think, around this area. It's zoning. Now, I got to tell you, the way the zoning is currently, I don't really agree with the way the zoning is being enforced in the county. I think it's a little unfair. I think we have some regulations that aren't really representative of some of the views of the people in the county. I'm not saying that I'm against regulation, but I believe the best regulation comes from when private citizens work together and landowners work with one another to regulate their own property. It's voluntary. These these commitments the landowners can make, but they're stronger because the landowners are able to actually enforce these rules themselves without having to call the planning commission or go before the board of zoning appeals and wait for their decisions. They can instantly solve the problems. It's also another way that the county can save some money too. I mean, those are less departments that we have to spend so much money with. And even with one of the examples I was gonna mention is even with zoning. I'm not sure if many of you have heard of Ridge Road over in Maryville. Apparently it was an area that was zoned for residential use, but because of the relationships between the county commission and some developers and businesses, the area was actually rezoned for commercial use and is now a storage lot for construction equipment. So you've got these residences and these houses where people live with their children and it's supposed to be a nice peaceful area, but now you've got all this construction equipment right next door, which I'm sure if these people were asked and actually had the chance to refuse, then they probably would have either not done it or they would have at least prepared better for it. The unfortunate thing is they didn't have a choice in the matter. And another reason that I think zoning the way it is doesn't work is, again, because it gives us a situation where one group or individual is represented over another group or another individual. So really, there might have been some people that wanted this construction yard in that area, and so those are the ones that found favor with the government, and the ones that didn't want it are kind of out of luck. So when the government picks and chooses who they're going to represent, there's got to be better ways to do that. And I think that's really why the control and the power of the land should be with the citizens, because ultimately they're going to be the ones that are going to have to live with how their land is used. And really, instead of I believe, instead of an influential developer or business person only having to talk to a few commissioners and have the rules changed, they have to gain the approval of all the citizens who are going to be affected the most by what they want to do. So I believe that the citizens are very intelligent, very hardworking, and I think they can make the decisions for themselves and don't really need some top-down regulation of how they use their property. And don't make no mistake, I love the environment, I love nature, and I'm not against all regulation. I just believe that it's better to have the control in the citizens' hands. It's more efficient and it's more effective. And for those of us that might not agree with how our neighbors are using their property, well, it's kind of up to us as citizens to get involved. If I don't like what my neighbor's doing, it's really up to me to go to that guy and that property owner and say, kind of talk with him and tell him what he's doing and how it's affecting my property. But it takes some involvement to make sure that the land is used properly. But I think it's well worth it. And I believe it. Not to ramble too much on about it, but I think it also builds stronger communities. When you have neighbors working together and landowners enforcing these contracts between themselves, you get stronger communities. You get neighbors are talking to one another, and they're building a community that's going to be prosperous, and it's going to be they're going to be familiar with your neighbors, and so you're not going to want to infringe on their property rights. So that's a little bit about my feeling on zoning and land use regulation.